guys, my name is Samantha Jones, and I'm here to talk to you about my in-service project on rebuilding phonics instruction. So first, our school has identified that we have a major phonics deficit school-wide. And as an elementary school, we have to teach our students how to read. And if our students are struggling with phonics, then of course that is going to be impossible for us to achieve. That letter sound correlation within words is where phonics instruction stems. And of course, if that a student is struggling with letters or sounds, then they are definitely going to be struggling with sounding out words and then reading up text altogether. So our students have lost months of instruction due to COVID. And because of that, I think that more so than previous years, we've seen our students not be able to sound out words independently. That has forced them to be more reliant on asking for help, but it's also kind of inhibited our ability to just give them seat work on their own. And so kind of addressing this issue is not only going to help them become better readers, but it also just helps us as teachers be able to get our students to do the work that we have given them. So supporting data here is, we use the program already, and this is our first year using it, and we've given our students diagnostic tests already. With those diagnostic tests, you have your domains, phonological awareness, phonics, high frequency words, those sight words we generally kind of live in, vocabulary, comprehension for literature, and then comprehension with informational text. And in previous years, I know that we focused a lot of our like MTSS and things like that, kind of with vocabulary, high frequency words, and then kind of going down, working with students with their comprehension, fluency, things like that. But this year, and we've noticed that our students aren't even able to get to that level. We're definitely needing them to more focus going backwards with phonics and phonological awareness. This data here supports that. If you look at this, the red indicates students being below grade level by 2 or more levels. So if we're in second grade, these are students already performing on kindergarten or even beyond that levels. And then yellow would be 1 grade level below, so students on a first grade level, which is still detrimentally behind when we're talking about phonics skills here. And then green means they're on second grade, and then this green with the lines through it is suggesting that they are performing at third grade or above. So as you can see, when you look at where students are, we have a tremendous amount of students in this phonics level that are not performing on grade level. With my class, this equals out to about 73% of my students. If I combine even what's on grade level, because that just means they are literally where they're at, that doesn't mean they have the skills to continue to grow, but they can read on grade level text according to this. That is over 80% of my students. So obviously, phonics instruction is a huge deficit. And I know that my scores are not the only ones that look like this, and obviously our school didn't either. Or they wouldn't have set a phonics initiative for us, and this, of course, supports it. So as a school, we want all of our students to be successful. Our administration did set a phonics initiative, and then within second grade, we've talked so much more about this and how much our students truly need this. We really have to up our phonics instruction and make sure that not only is it effective instruction, it's got to be worth our while. We also, for given materials, we have to know how to use them. That's where I'm going to help you guys a lot today. Okay, so we all have the Recipe for Reading book, and it is the book. It looks like this, and we've all been given one, but we've never really been taught how to use it. So I have paired these lessons with some other resources and things to kind of help us. And I'm going to walk you through how to create the perfect phonics lesson. And again, y'all, that book does it for you. We just didn't know how to use it. All right. So Recipe for Reading. You have to use the Recipe for Reading book anyway. But in the past, I know that what I had done really in the past was I just looked at the book and I kind of just went through pieces of it that I thought were most important. And then I set it back on the counter till the next day or next week, depending on time. What we know about phonics instruction is that it is worth the time, because if our students can read and they can decode, well, that is building them into being able to comprehend. So when we just focus on the skills and that comprehension, then we're not truly helping our students. But if we can focus on the phonics and that fundamentals, then the rest will come. So for this, it's worth the time. Okay, I promise it is worth the time. This book is already set into a progression. So if you start at the beginning of the year, then if you go through the book as they have it laid out, then your students are going to naturally grow. But for us, we kind of start somewhere in the middle. What would link to, I guess, part 2 really of the book. It's not really broken up into parts, but like the second section of the book is kind of where we live. Now, of course, if your students need even more basic help, you can go back, and if they are needing that acceleration piece, you can go forward, especially if you think about your small groups and where you maybe need to remediate and accelerate. Okay, so you can use this book kind of at your own pace, but generally, we're all going to live in that middle section. Okay, so a structured phonics program is instrumental for students when they come in and they do that repetitive thing, and they are being reminded of their letter sounds throughout the week and throughout the months. If you continue to do it, then your students are naturally going to be growing. All right. So this is the lesson plan format. So each page has their lesson kind of broken up to go with this overall format. So I've given you this sheet, and of course you can look up here as well. But this is a lot, and this isn't all of it. If you truly do this program, then this is not all that you are going to be doing. Okay? So, and I'll explain that in just a second. But so within the program, step 1 says shuffles and then flashes the sound card. So it is very specific for you. So every day to start your lesson, what you are going to do is you're going to go to your sound cards, and you literally have the entire stack of sound cards that go with this progression. Okay, so according to the progression of the Recipe for Reading book, these are the sounds that we would have already learned. So at the start of every lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to go through these sounds, and on the back of these cards, it repeats the sound for you as a teacher since you're holding it in front of you, and then it gives you a word example. So you want to make sure that your students are saying it correctly. So for this one, I would give you guys a pause moment, and everyone would kind of think, and then the students would say ow, okay, or all. They could get it wrong, they could get it right. All right, and so to help them, if they get it wrong, we're going to just kind of put it in the back, and we'll come back to it. So for like this one right here, let's say that they get stuck together because they are pretty thick. So for this one, you want them to say j, j. But if they said dudge or something, then you'd put it behind. J, you put it down. Okay, so they said it correctly, you can kind of move on. Next, you have a K in. You want them to go no, no. And so you just practice going through them just like so until you get through all of the cards that you have gone over before. So that's kind of the issue, the kind of thing here. So if we go back to this one, and we got through all of them, let's say, and we go back to the ones they may have missed, because let's say they said this was ow, then you would go back to it and you would try it again. And if needed to, you would repeat it for them, make them watch your mouth, make them pay attention to what your tongue is doing if they can see that, and to make sure that they're saying it correctly. So you would go back and you would want them to go like ow, ow, okay? And so after you've done all of your sound cards that would be, that had been gone over before, you would go to step 2, and it says reshuffles the pad, gives the sounds of each letter one at a time, and this is having students go into a writing portion. So instead of giving them the cards themselves, I would just say the sound. So I would go ch, ch, if I were looking at the CH card, ch, okay? And I can even, and then I want them to write it down. I could even give them a word like chick, if I wanted to help them if they were struggling a little bit and kind of couldn't put it in context. That could help them a lot. So you go through all your cards and you help them with that. You can monitor the students and make sure that they are on track and that they are spelling it correctly. You can spell with like expo markers on whiteboards. You can spell in sand if you're brave. You can have them spell in the air, sometimes just different ways to get them passionate about learning and engaged in the learning. Okay. Next says has 3 piles of letter cards in consonant, vowel, consonant pattern. So you can use these same cards, but I find doing alphabet characters to be a little more engaging. So as our alphabet characters, we have these as well. And so basically they are just like an alphabet that you would put on your board. But instead of having these like glued to my wall, I just have them standing alone. So I'm just gonna kind of hold these out in front instead of putting them in an alphabet tray. That way you can see them. So for this, you can see that each card has the letter, it has a character, and then it even has like words at the bottom. This is just super cute. It kind of engages your students again, and just it's very interesting. So D, like Daisy, dragon, and then when you look closer at the picture, you have a dog. There are D's on his little spandex there, so it's just kind of repetition of that sound. So here you would have it said to do consonant, vowel, consonant. So here you would have this set up and you would have them sound out this word, and you would hope that they would go j-ad, jad, and then you can have the conversation of whether or not that is a real word or a nonsense word, and hopefully again they would say nonsense. And if not, you would have that conversation with them and talk about, well, where have you seen a jad, and see if you can get some good conversation going. Sometimes wrong answers create the best conversations. So this one, had. Was that a real word? And so kind of having them have those conversations. So for this, I'm keeping my same ending and I was only changing my first letter. If that you wanted to change the vowels only, you can do that as well. Or if you only wanted to change the ending sounds. Honestly, within a week, doing a good mixture of those things is the way to go. So on Monday, just change the first consonant. On Tuesdays, change your vowels. On Thursdays, change your ending consonant. Or whatever your students seem to have the most issue with when coming to sounding out the words. So this is a long lesson plan. We're not even through with it at all, okay? But what I suggest is every day start off with those steps 1 through 3. Because those are so instrumental in just remembering sounds, practicing sounding out words, and just overall decoding skills, okay? But then, like every day, if you do those, then you would add step 4 when needed, okay? So step 4 says, if students are ready, teach a new sound and display the letters in front of them. So for us, what we could do, or what we're going to be talking about anyway, is the lesson plan that goes with Magic E. So if we're introducing new sounds to them, we're going back to our letter cards here, all right? Your letter cards for Sneaky E would look like this. You have O-E, so you need to talk to them about what that dash means, of how it's filling in for a consonant. And then, so like O-E, tote. You don't hear the E. Oh, it's a Magic E. It's Sneaky E. Okay, and for Sneaky E, there are actually more than one Sneaky E word. You have I-E, A-E. Those are the main ones. You would probably want to slowly work these in. Magic E is kind of a longer lesson that you may need to break over a couple of weeks. So for this, we're just going to look at all 3 of these. But of course, as you know your students and you know how quickly they learn, you would want to teach these slowly, most likely, and kind of just repeat the lesson. But I'm going to show you all 3. All right. So O-E, I want you to say tote. All right. And then I-E and then A-E. We would have conversations about all of those. All right. And then like on Mondays, you could repeat, you could add in step 5. So of course, this recommendation of Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and how to add these in. That's just a suggestion, again, just to kind of break this apart a little bit more, because reality is we can't teach all this lesson in one day. We can't teach all this lesson unless we truly had about a 45-minute phonics segment, and we just don't. Okay, so then for step 5, whenever we can add that in, it says dictate the words using the new letter, and presents the word above flashcards. So let's say that I wanted, we're working on A-E. I want you guys to spell the word lace, because that is an A-E silent E word. So then lace, and then everyone would write out lace, and I would check to see how that word was being spelled. And we could go through much more examples and having everybody spell A-E words, or even do a combination using all 3 of these. So next, do bike, and I want you to spell bike. And again, the E has to be present. That's the tricky part about these and why that example, lots of examples need to be given, because it is very hard for students to remember to put that E on there if they don't hear it. All right. Next would be step 6. And it says dictates 1 or more sentences, and then we would present the sentences on flashcards. So like, for instance, if I gave you guys a sentence with bike, I'd say he rode the bike home, and we are going to want to try to spell that out with writing. And some spelling may be wrong, of course, but the main thing that we want to make sure that we get is bike, because that is what we're working on. So if the word is going to have a sneaky E, I want to make sure that that is the word that is spelled correctly. And then next, it says support students as needed. So this next part says read a book at appropriate level. Well, that's going to tie really well into our next thing, where we're going to use decodable readers. This just suggests that you can use any book that you want. It doesn't necessarily have to be one of their decodable readers, just a book that has any words in it, really. And you want to make sure that, because Sneaky E is so popular, any book is really going to work. You can choose any book, you can read it to them, and then as you come to words that have that sneaky E, you're going to want them to recognize that. You want them to like raise their hand. Oh, I saw the rule. I know exactly what you're talking about. That way that everything in here kind of gets a real life example. It's not just a lesson anymore. Like, it's really in books. It's really something we're going to write about. And then number 8 is play word games. And I'll show you what some of those look like. Word games can literally be examples within the recipe for reading book, but sometimes that could even be something that you go to a lesson and you figure out what the lesson rule is, and then you can go to the internet and you can find that rule on an actual game as well. So, and then on Fridays, my suggestion is review, okay? Again, this is not a perfect Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday kind of lesson plan. Sometimes you're going to run over. Sometimes you need to break it down even further than that. And sometimes your students may breeze through a couple of them. And that's totally fine. You have to go through what works for you. The idea here is very sound, very specific phonics instruction going through this lesson plan. So this is an actual lesson plan with recipe for reading. So this is the Magic E lesson plan. So within this lesson plan sheet, and I've given you guys an example of this too. This one, I printed 4 to a page for you. And of course you can use your own recipe for reading book. It starts on page 100. But I've given you guys this just in case you didn't bring your book. And it's going to walk you through a lot. It's going to walk you through the entire Magic E lesson. Now, the Magic E lesson is much longer than most other ones because Magic E is so broad. You have OE, you have AE, IE, all these vowels. And of course, it is extremely tricky for students at this age to do. So the Magic E first starts off and it just kind of gives us like, hey, make sure you do this or two. So it's going to give you guidance. And then it says review vowel sounds. We've already done all of that. So it's in here and we have already went through the lesson plan, and that's where our review came from. Next, it tells us the procedure for teaching Magic E. So it says, write on a chalkboard or a piece of paper a 3-letter word that can be changed by magic E into another word. So this entire section right here is just practicing again with magic E. We've already done this because of our lesson plan here. So when we were going through our lesson plan, we could have pulled out these words and we could have continued practicing in step 5, spelling words. It says dictates the word using the new letter. Well, that's exactly the same thing that it is saying. So here it says to write pin and then to write pine. So it's again just giving them the visual that one letter can make all the difference in how a word is spelled and said. Okay. So all of this right here is already tying back to this. So you would need to look at both of them and pair them, but we've already done that. Next, this is really, in this lesson, this is number 8, the word games. It gives you a for younger students and for older students example of what that you should be doing. So like for older students, because I really like this, and even though as 2nd grade, technically we're teaching younger students, I really feel like this is something that our students can benefit from. So I love how this book gives 2 different examples or 2 different level examples. So for this one right here, it has our CVC words like TAP, tap, PIN, pin. And so we can go through those. But then it's showing you that you should create like a sliding E to go through the paper, and you can move it down and up. And as you put the E beside that word, it changes that word. So tap becomes tape. And it's just a cute little visual. So it's kind of giving them a craft, it's extending their learning, but it's also something super engaging, and it becomes almost like a game. So when it says word game, it's not necessarily a tic-tac-toe kind of thing, but it could be, and it could just be something so simple as this. Next, it goes to decodable magic E words for dictation and reading. Well, we already have that kind of in here too. It's just some more words for us to pull from. Down here, decodable sentences, which would be number 6, dictates one or more decodable sentences. So here it says, I like the tone of the tune. And so it even has underlined the words that you should be specifically looking for that they have spelled correctly. So you don't have to come up with any of these things on your own, okay? And then again, more decodable words. These are going to be with consonant blends. This is kind of like an extension. You don't always have to do this, and not every lesson even comes with this section. But if your students are ready for a challenge, because they're definitely words they're going to see, things like crate, skate, crane, you have that blend. So if you've talked about blends, which we have, then this is something that we could definitely go to. More decodable sentences, and it says for fun and practice. These are not really your games, but they can be. It's like sentences. Jan made Jane mad. So it's kind of tricky because it's alternating CVC and then CVCE words that are going to be trickier for them to be able to decode and kind of just challenge them. Okay. So this lesson is a lot longer and would need you to truly go through all of these steps to fidelity, because the CVC E rule, the magic E rule, sneaky E, whatever you call it, is definitely a harder concept for our students to learn at this stage. But it is a very important phonics lesson for us to incorporate into our lessons, and it's something we cannot skip. Okay. So, sorry, wrong thing. So then next we go to decodable text. And I skipped a page, I'm so sorry. No, sorry. All right, so decodable text. Decodable text are kind of like the next thing that you would really want to go to. So if we've practiced all of these things, and in a lesson earlier it said to kind of like read it in a book, well, the decodable text are what I'm talking about, okay? It said you could do like any book, but I'm going to suggest the decodable text because it just gives you more bang for your buck time-wise, okay? So because the decodable texts are great and they are already on grade level, okay? So the decodable text take a phonics skill and use the sound throughout a cute story to aid in memorization. What I just mean by that is that if you have a sound like the sneaky E, it's just going to kind of be repeated. You're going to get lots more examples in context. It's not quite the same. It's just sounding words out that you were given in a list or something like that. These words are actually going to be in a story. and that just kind of helps. And it repeats it, which gives us more examples to hear and to see as like a shared reading. Okay, these stories can be a little wacky, but they are a lot of fun. So then how do you find the decodable text? So at the bottom of your lesson page, so this is what a general lesson looks like. As you can see, B as in bat is just a one-page lesson. And so a lot of times the lessons in the Recipe for Reading book were only one lesson. The Magic E story that I went with is a lot longer, and it really explicitly gives you all the different steps, even with some repeats, because like I said, it is so tricky and instrumental that our students learn. But this is more general to what most lessons look like, and it, again, pairs perfectly with the lesson plan. So down here, it tells you a workbook to go to. We don't really use the workbooks. We don't have those. But then it says the Alphabet Series Volume 1, Book 9, A Big Job. So it tells you which alphabet series to go to, what page it's going to be on, and the name of the name of the book, and the number of the book, because all the books are numbered. So our decodable readers, we have a good many of them. This is just one stack of them, and each one is a different book. So what you guys would have is here it says book 22, and that's the book that we are specifically going to go to for the Sneaky E. And so for Sneaky E, you guys need to look, it says a snake for Jane. And so as we go through this book, you would read this book to your students. And so it says Jane and her pal Pete rode their bikes on the path. They rode fast. So through this book, we could talk about how like Jane is a Sneaky E rule. You have the word the, but do I hear that E? And you could have conversations about whether or not the words on this page actually follow the rules or not. Okay. So so be sure to make sure that if, before you start really reading the book, if there's any words or anything in here that your students aren't going to understand, make sure that you talk about that first. So with this book, A Snake for Jane, you know that we're going to talk about snakes. Well, hopefully they do know what a snake is, but like if you haven't talked about the SN sound, you may want to talk about SN, and you could go through the book, and of course you would go through it previously and just make sure that any words that they might not know are something that you have already talked about. Okay. So if you look at the book, so this is an example of a different book, one of the alphabet series, and it tells you that the back inside cover provides a quick reference that includes new sight words. So you would just go to the back, and it tells you basically what you may need to address with them. So for this one, it says to learn where, under, and there, as in like the possessive there. According to this book, you haven't taught those yet. Of course, we could have, in a different context, talked to our students about those. So you have to use your teacher discretion as well, for sure. To make sure that they do understand those. And if you look at the book and you saw there was something else that they didn't understand, then you would want to make sure that you address that as well. But this book was explicitly told, you were told to go to it, and then the book tells you exactly what you should review with them. So again, it's just you following a lesson plan and then following through with the book. You didn't have to actually come up with any of these things on your own. Okay. So how would you incorporate this? Again, I understand that time is super crunched and we don't have a lot of time for just readings and things like that, but we do know that the power of read alouds is huge. We need our students to be exposed to text. We need them for them to hear us read so that they understand the vocabulary, so that they can see what it is to be fluent in reading, so that they can be exposed to different topics. There are numerous reasons why a read aloud is so important. And you can even tie this book to other things in your class. Again, if you just take the time to look ahead at it. So we're talking about snakes here. Okay, pull another snakes paper for writing. And so now I've already given them their background knowledge, and then I can talk about snakes and have them independently write about it. That's simple. Okay. The book already told you, Recipe for Reading already told you which book to go to. All right. and it's just going to reiterate the sounds. So when do we use this? I literally read one of these with my student, or at least some of it, because maybe I don't have time to read. This book has 20 pages. Maybe I don't have time to read all 20 pages on Monday, but maybe I can read a couple of the pages. Okay. If I have students that are really struggling, I give them this book to even work on during centers. No, it's not an AR book, but in this book, from the slide before, what it shows you is that there are even comprehension questions to go with it on this last page. So you can have them partner work. You can have them write these answers on a piece of paper or in their journal to show it to you. I have my students actually write the answer to these questions in Google Classroom. So I go ahead and put the questions on a page and assign it to all of them. And then by Friday, they have to answer these questions. Of course, if we don't read the book all on Monday, then they may have to wait a little bit to get that done. And that's okay. The goal for me during a week is to at least read the book, whole group with them twice. Sometimes I break it up, half and half. So like Monday, half, Tuesday, finish it, and then start it again on Wednesday and Thursday, finish it. And then on Friday, I truly expect them to have this completely questions answered. It was only 3 questions. It's not a super hard book. And again, we talk about it immensely with following those rules and things. So hopefully they will be able to answer those questions correctly. All right. For my third resource that I want to encourage us all to use, kind of steps away from the recipe for reading. So my first resource, you have the recipe for reading, you go through the lesson, then you tie it to your decodable reader, which kind of goes into more center time. And then next, iReady is something that we're going to, we already use it. We did our diagnostics. It immediately assigned lessons to our students in all the different domains based on what their needs were and their levels were. So we're already using it. It's already an expectation. We're already doing it every day in centers. So all I'm suggesting is that we specifically assign them lessons to go with this. That literally takes, I'll be generous here with time, say 5 minutes. Maximum 5 minutes is all that this takes, I promise, okay? And I'm gonna walk you through how to do this, okay? So, if I click here, let me see if I can get that to work. Yes. All right, so this is the home page for iReady. This is my class data here. All right, and so we're not talking about anything to do with looking at the data of our weekly lessons or anything. I just want to show you guys how to assign lessons. So when you are in here, the automatic opening is under reading. If for any reason it doesn't go to reading, you just click there. And if it was on math, you just change it back to reading, okay? From here, up at the top, we're going to go to Assess and Teach. And I have all of these steps also linked into the PowerPoint, and I have shared that with you guys so you guys have access to this as well. And so under Assess and Teach, we're going to go over here to Instruction, okay? Again, under Instruction, we are talking about reading because phonics falls under reading, so you click on Reading. All right, and this is where we can reach all the lessons that iReady offers for all grade levels. So we're just going to scroll down. All right, so here starts, it said, and you can filter a million different ways. So like lesson name, we can go here and we can write in what we need. We can go all lessons. And then the main thing that I want to go to here is domain. The first thing that we want to do, if you know exactly what lesson you're looking for, then you can just type it in under lesson name. Sometimes things are always, I feel like they're always just worded a little bit different than what I want them to be. And so I have like a harder time finding it if I just search for it. So if you go to phonics, and now everything is phonics. So as you can see, it says recognize letters M and T, and they give you examples, lowercase and uppercase, and these say emerging K, so kindergarten. Since a lot of our students were in the red, or at least in my class were in the red, they were already at this level. So even if, for this lesson to really tie it all together, I want to look for those sneaky E rules. But to further help my students, if I know a student is struggling with any of these, I can go in and assign those to the student. And then emerging K is lowest, and then you can go early K, and then mid K. So it's very broken down. Okay, and then of course you can search grade level. So I'm just gonna see if I can find, see if it goes to silent E. All right, click out. And so here, just putting in silent E, I have long vowels A and I with E, and then long vowels O and U with silent E. Let's say I taught all of them to my students and I just want them to review again on their own. I click them like here, and then I'm going to go over here and say in the green, assign lessons. This now sets it up to say that I can go to class or students. So if I only wanted to assign it to 5 of my students, like especially if I were those first lessons I was showing you, that just immediately popped up in that like emerging K. Not everyone needs to work on the letter T, but I may have 2 or 3 students that do. So if I were looking at specific students, I would click on students to assign it to. Here, that's what we did whole group, so every student is getting this. So I'm going to go to class and go next, and it lists all of my sections. These are all just my homeroom since, we're just 2nd grade. And then we go next here, and it now wants me to set an available date. So if I go here, and I'm looking at the calendar, so I don't need that. All right, so I want my students to start working on it on the 29th, and I want them to stop working on it, on December 3rd, and then same thing here. I want them all, wrong date, I want them all to be able to work on it like so, and then I would just assign lessons. These are now assigned to my students. Change the save to set at the top, it's done. When your students pull up their Chromebook, they go into iReady Reading, they're going to have 2 sections. So one is blue and one is green. Blue is normal. Blue is when they just enter the program into whatever domain it has them in at whatever level it has them at. It's always suggested for them, though, to click on the green. The green says Teacher Assigned Lessons. So you do teach your students to click on that whenever that is available for them, and they would just go in and go to Teacher Assigned Lessons, and it's going to pull up these lessons. It's going to start with videos for them. It's going to reteach them. It's going to have them practice those skills. It's going to have them it's going to have them interact with the program where they have to click and drag and fill in and type and sort, all kinds of different things that have them moving their mouse around to make sure they are engaged and interacting with the lesson. Okay. If they go through the entire lesson, they will be given a quiz. If they pass that quiz, then they just kind of move on to the next thing and can kind of test out. It's not really a test though, but they will exit these programs. And once they finish the whole lesson, that icon to do teacher assigned lesson will no longer be available for them, and it will only be the one that is always there in blue. If they fail this lesson, let's say they failed the long vowels A and I with E, then it reassigns it to them. Okay. If they fail it a second time, then this other one with O and U is a great basic reteaching of that because they do follow the same rules. So it will then go ahead and let them start taking this one. If they fail this one as well, you can go into the program and try to find other similar lessons or continue to assign these lessons to them. Of course, if they're failing these, that's something that needs to be addressed, most likely in a small group setting. So during your guided reading, you're going to want to make sure you refocus that with them and make sure you pay close attention to them when the whole group, when you're going over the same phonics skill, and then when you put it in your stack to do reteaching. Because once you teach it, it goes in that first stack we did. And now they've got to be able to do that again weekly. And so you need to make sure that they are staying on task and kind of learning from that. All right, let's go back. All right. All right, so this slide right here, like I told you, I've created all the steps for you so that you can go through and be able to do that on your own. There are all the steps for that. All right, and I also went over this as well. So you can go in and you can check the scores. When you first open up iReady, it shows you their lessons. It shows you like how many students are on task and how many students have been off task, how many lessons they've passed and things like that. And so then you can have those conversations. Hey, this says you're rushing. This says you only took 5 minutes. Or this says that you're doing great. So all of that is broken down in iReady as well. So having those conversations throughout the week and holding them accountable is, again, going to make this program worth it. And actually, like if you're just holding them accountable, it just makes a big difference on anything that you're doing. All right. So the overall goals here is just to help students be able to decode so that they can read and write independently. Having students ask you how to spell things or what this word is when they get to it really takes a lot of time out of daily instruction, and we need students to be able to independently do whatever it is that we're asking them to do. We need them to be able to read independently on grade level, and again, that all comes down to being able to decode. If students can work independently and work on their own and read stories on their own and then answer questions on their own, that again is just building comprehension, which is the overall goal at this point in their education. Can students read and then comprehend what they're reading? Because comprehension equals success. And in conclusion, when students are supported, they succeed. So we see that our students do not have phonics skills. We see that they cannot decode. They cannot sound out words. So we have to support them. And that's why phonics is so important. We want our students to be able to do their work independently. We want them to be able to succeed. Unfortunately, right now, we all see that they are struggling and they are not able to do this. So we've got to help them. Pairing phonics with recipe for reading, story cards, and iReady is a huge circle of just phenomenal research-based resources that can help our students truly succeed. Because not only are we teaching them whole group, we are then putting it in story form for them to just practice seeing it in the real world. And then we're making them do independent practice. And then we're even quizzing them overall to see, well, did any of this stick? And so with putting all of these resources together, we're not only teaching our students that phonics is important, we are challenging them to improve their phonics skills, and then we are holding them accountable by checking the program to see if they are taking their time and succeeding. We're checking them during their recipe for reading lessons to make sure they are spelling things correctly, and we are working with them independently, whole group, small group, all of these things, again, just to focus on this one skill. Phonics, because phonics is how we are going to get our students to read on grade level text and decode. We do take another iReady diagnostic after Christmas break, and so I've been doing this in my room for a while now, and I know that you guys have been already using Recipe for Reading and iReady, so hopefully you guys will use the rest of these resources as well, pairing them together really well. And I hope to see some great improvements in my students with this next diagnostic because, like I said before, my students really respond to this and it really works. It is a huge, it's a huge group of pairing great resources. And so, again, we just want our students to comprehend. And that is all I have. Thank you, guys.